The Port Podcast with Craig Bell Estabrooks.
So now, who better to come up and talk about the state of the world, the state of the country, the big ambitious plans that we have in front of us than Premier Susan Holt. So Premier Holt, raised in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Susan Holt was elected to the New Brunswick Legislature as the first woman Premier of New Brunswick and MLA for Fredericton South Silverwood on October 21st, 2024. She was first elected as the leader of the opposition and the Liberal member for Bathurst, East Nipisiguit, St. Isidore in March 2023. That's a riding name. She has extensive experience in both local and global business, community leadership, provincial and national advocacy, and social enterprise development. She has also spent a number of years working within government on economic policy. A champion of community involvement, Ms. Holt has been an active volunteer and contributor to organizations like the New Brunswick Lung Association, JEDI, Junior Achievement, Propel ICT, New Brunswick Association of Community Living, Fredericton Homeless Shelters, and more. She has degrees in chemistry and economics from Queen's University. Ms. Holt is perfectly bilingual thanks to New Brunswick's early immersion program, paired with continued practice and strong commitment to the French language. She, her husband John, and their 3 young children are passionate about New Brunswick's great outdoors as avid hikers, runners, and campers. And I can say Premier Holt has given my wife and I tremendous advice on how to raise a very young child as well. She's a wonderful person, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Craig. It's a real treat for me to be among you and to be able to celebrate and recognize the leadership at the Port St. John and to talk a little bit about the opportunity that's in front of us and how we're going to get after it. So thrilled to be here today. Thank you all for coming to our port city and to our province. And hopefully I'll get the chance to connect with many of you in the minutes, hours to come. And looking forward to the kind of tough questions that Craig is going to throw at me here.
Well, let's get right into it. The last number of months, you've been elected now and Premier for 200 days. I mentioned earlier, you've seen 2 U.S. presidents, 2 prime ministers, tremendous amount of change. What is it like to lead in this moment?
Oh my goodness. I wouldn't have expected it. When we were sworn in on November 2nd, at that point, the president hadn't been elected in the U.S. We hadn't had a prime minister resign. And all of those things happened within, I think, my first 60 days on the job. So a lot of turnover, but to me, it actually comes with so much opportunity. It's almost like the kick in the pants that we needed because we got comfortable here in Canada. We certainly here in New Brunswick, we do all of our trade, 92% of our trade with the U.S. because it's easy, it's close, it's just across the border, they're next door, we can access a massive market of customers and others in New England and beyond. And I think we took for granted that relationship. But this has made us look at who we do business with, how we do business, and what it's going to take to be competitive tomorrow. And luckily, the news is that New Brunswick is exceptionally well positioned for where the world is right now. So some of this global uncertainty has led to an increase in defense budgets. Well, guess what? New Brunswick has the largest Canadian Forces base in Canada. We build Canada's military right here in this province, not too far down the road. And so we have a huge role to play in the modernization of our defense efforts. We also have the kind of minerals that go into defense products, and those are in exceptionally high demand from China, from the US, and from others. So there's so many ways. I won't get asked one question and talk for the next 15 minutes. There are so many ways that we can take this moment of uncertainty and these changing priorities and use them to New Brunswick and Canada's benefit.
So Premier, in this room last week, speaking of the minerals, you outlined 6 priorities. And I think what stuck with a lot of us in the room that heard you speak, just was the notion that New Brunswick has what the world wants. So can you touch a little, because that's what we talk a lot about as a port. Can you talk about your priorities and why you feel that way?
Yeah. And isn't it nice when you give a speech and somebody quotes it back to you? Like that makes me feel really good, Greg. Thanks. We do. New Brunswick has what the world wants right now. Canadians need affordable housing. New Brunswick is the leader in modular fabrication. We have 6 global companies here that are building not only housing for residents, but also larger and larger complexes faster than you can believe and with the highest quality wood that you can get anywhere. So we are building those modular homes here and taking them across the country and the world. We're already selling them in Ontario, Quebec, and other places. But at a time when everyone is looking for fast and quality housing, New Brunswick is the best at that. And so I haven't had a chance to think through yet, but I'm sure there's people in this room who can tell me the best way to move all of the modular fabricated components from here to BC or Alberta or wherever they're needed. But that's something that we do and we do really well and is an exceptionally high demand. So housing is one. I mentioned critical minerals. So the demand for minerals right now, Canada has identified 34 critical minerals for trade. And New Brunswick is home to 21 of them, many of them undeveloped, and a few of them the largest untapped resource of its kind in North America or in the world. So we're talking things like indium, manganese, tungsten, molybdenum, copper. These are uranium, actually. These are minerals that are being used for solar panels, for touch screens, for defense applications, and folks maybe forget. I love coming to Port Days because you guys are so rooted in the history of the port and the partners and how they've built this city and this country. New Brunswick used to be a mining jurisdiction. And if folks here are familiar with Fundy National Park, there's a trail called the Coppermine Trail that is home to one of the earliest mines that is like a tube in the ground that they used to throw explosives down to. It's real old school mining. But this is something that we used to be really great at. And we still have copper assets and potash assets that are ready to be brought back to market, especially as their value is soaring. So New Brunswick certainly has what the world wants in terms of the minerals that are going into the products that are going to help us make a green transition and help us defend our sovereignty and some other things going forward. So what else did I talk about? I talked about housing, talked about minerals, I talked about defense, which I've already mentioned. I talked about energy and that I think is key to the port's success, having the kind of energy infrastructure in place that lets industry grow, that lets us meet the demands of a growing population. We have that in a variety of sources. We're one of the few jurisdictions that has nuclear. We're building wind assets and biomass assets to go with our hydro assets and others. And so not to mention an LNG terminal and a refinery and a deep water port that can handle energy products. Certainly, I don't have to share with this room the fact that the demand for energy products is increasing at an exceptional rate. And so having the kind of integrated utility and the sources of power generation and then all of the infrastructure that connects it to the US and to the rest of Canada is a real asset for New Brunswick because the world certainly wants more energy and New Brunswick is poised to deliver that to them. And then there's the trade connectivity. So this is where the port really shines. New Brunswick is, by our good fortune, strategically located in the middle of it all. So we are certainly in the middle of the Atlantic with our connections to Nova Scotia and PEI and Quebec and Maine. So we act as the Atlantic hub. But over here on the eastern seaboard, we service the largest population in the U.S. and we are an easy call over to Europe where we still haven't made full use of the Canadian-European Trade Agreement. There's opportunity there that's untapped. You want to get down to the Panama Canal, then you do that from St. John. We are just perfectly located. And then we have a port that has been so strategically developed that it offers that kind of container service, rail connectivity, dry bulk, like anything you want to move to the rest of the world and across Canada and beyond. The Port of St. John's in the exact right place to do that. And in partnership with Wayne Long, we're so thrilled to have Wayne. He was already phenomenal at getting stuff done in Ottawa to the benefit of St. John, but around the cabinet table, he's really going to let New Brunswick's full potential come to be seen by the rest of Canada. And the fact that we have this asset that needs to get connected in to everything that Canada is doing to build the kind of trade and energy infrastructure that are going to let Canadian businesses move their new and innovative products into an Americold facility, onto a container, and out to the world. And so we have the infrastructure that the world wants. We have the products. I haven't even talked about food. Our blueberries are the best in the world. Our potatoes are world class. We grow the most delicious things. Our seafood is in massive demand in Southeast Asia, in Korea. This protein that we grow here in the highest quality, the best practices for the seafood industry in New Brunswick, people want that. It's the healthiest protein you can eat. It is in high demand around the world. And right here in St. John is the global headquarters of the world-leading seafood company. So I guess I do ramble because New Brunswick has what the world wants. We have partners that can get it in the hands of customers that are waiting to benefit from our food and our housing and our minerals and others. And so this is a phenomenal time for New Brunswick to take a leadership position and for the Port of St. John as a critical partner in that leadership.
And just as a follow-up too on the trade front and the port front, I believe we have some colleagues in the room from Belledune, Denis Caron, I believe, and Jennifer are with us today. And maybe touch upon the notion that we have two strong Canadian port authorities in that federal network in our province. What does that bring for you as Premier?
Well, and if I can just say for a quick minute, because what Craig has just exemplified is what New Brunswick is good at. Here we are at Port Days for the Port of St. John, and the CEO of the Port of St. John is calling out the Port of Belledune to highlight the opportunity there, because he knows that collaboration and teamwork is what makes this work. It's one of the reasons why people love doing business with New Brunswick, is because of that friendliness, that willingness to look after your. And they're not competitors. The Port of Belledune is not a competitor, but I love that you're sharing the stage and the attention with the folks at the Port of Belledune, because Denis and Jennifer and the team are driving a green economy strategy. They're building projects for hydrogen, for wind, for minerals. I think we've got a mineral project that we're really excited to be figuring out, connections with Quebec. They've been expanding their infrastructure for the bulk that they do and building connections. I think, what is it, Denis? We've got partnerships with the Port of Rotterdam, Port of Antwerp, Port of Hamburg, I think, now. So building some of those European connections that are going to be critical. There's a real boldness and ambition, to quote some of the speech from the throne, that the Port of Belledune has been exhibiting, and a great relationship within the province and beyond, because the Port of Belledune offers something different. Still phenomenal access out the St. Lawrence and to get across to Europe and to other places. Just a great, again, like here, great community support. Really aligned between the municipality, the private sector partners, the provincial government, the federal government. What the Port of Belledune team has been leading, bringing along First Nations partnerships, has been a real priority for the Port of Belledune because of their location, and they've been leading the way in how to build that kind of partnership up there. So really appreciate the opportunity to talk.
I really personally believe we got to throw away the old notion of competition or we shouldn't collaborate because it's one person's moment or another does
that mean I shouldn't do a dig at the Port of Halifax, or is that
I'm not even going to go there. I believe we got some friends in Halifax in the room, but no, it's I really do think it is time to kind of throw away those old notions as a province, and you've done a great job at that. I think we've just got such a unique moment as Canadians where the pride level is through the roof, and if we can collaborate and come together and work on projects as a province and not view it as competition if a pipeline ends in one jurisdiction or doesn't in another, we need to be thinking much bigger and much more strategic as a country. So, and we have Minister Wayne Long here today. I did not realize you were going to be in their presence. You snuck in, so welcome. Welcome. So speaking of the relationship with the federal government, I think the audience would love to hear. We hear a lot about you as Premier and your colleagues meeting frequently. It's become this big topic. What is it like to be amongst a group of premiers across the country who are trying to forge ahead in a bold way that we haven't seen in decades?
It's been one of the unexpected bright spots in this work. I hadn't imagined really, I was living in a world of win a leadership campaign, win a by-election, build a platform, win a provincial election. So I hadn't spent a ton of time thinking about the national role. But it was only a matter of days after the swearing in that we had this fundamental existential economic threat in the tariffs that President Trump suggested he would do, that saw all of us as premiers getting together within my first 30 days on the job, online and then face-to-face in December and again in December and again in January and in Washington in February. And I hadn't anticipated spending so much time with the other premiers. And at a moment when we naturally came together, and given that at the time there was such uncertainty on the federal government stage from a leadership perspective, that the premiers knew that we had to be on the same page and reassure Canadians that now was not the time for us to bicker like the siblings that we are. Now was the time for all of us to agree that we had to defend Canada's interests in a united way. We had to put our personal interests of our province secondary to the national interest, and be able to give that reassuring and strong message to Canadians that it was the time for all of us to come together and to demonstrate how we were strong and free, and how we were going to change our own behavior and our position in the world with international relationships and beyond. And then that spurred the kind of work on internal trade that we haven't seen certainly in my lifetime. And that's a file that I'd worked on as a bureaucrat. And I'll tell you, it wasn't my favorite assignment back in 2016. Working on internal trade issues was slow. It was tedious. We were in the weeds of, well, what about your standard and what about my standard and how are we going to... And that's been blown out of the water by this desire between all the premiers, regardless of partisan stripe. I don't know if people would naturally think this, but partisanship isn't at play around the Council of the Federation table. There might be like the classic joke about the Liberal or the NDP or the Conservatives, but it really isn't at all. We have regional moments, and certainly we in the Atlantic band together. But New Brunswick actually has a really neat position at that table, because we connect with BC on forestry, on seafood, on the fact that we're sort of port and water-facing places. We connect with Alberta on minerals, on energy, on a lot of former New Brunswickers in Alberta, and this would be a great time for them to come home if any of them are in the room. We connect with Manitoba in really interesting ways, actually. In Saskatchewan, we already mentioned the potash connections. Quebec, we have a lot of shared interest in cultural and language preservation issues, as well as our direct connection that we work out. And then the Atlantic share kind of a similar ethos. And surprisingly, Doug Ford has been a lot more fun than you might think. Actually, no, he probably looks pretty fun from where you guys are at. Whatever you want to say about his policies, he's a good chair of a COF meeting, and really not fussed about anything that's Ontario-centric, happy to bring everybody together. And so it has been a treat to be able to be at that table and play a role on behalf of New Brunswick in the kind of nation building that we've had to do from November through to today.
So I've got one last question for you. You've been very generous with your time. We've taken more of your time than you've been very gracious. You've had an opportunity to be with some of our key stakeholders over the last day or so, and even before this moment in this Port Days conference, and before your time, I mentioned in my remarks, there's been moments a decade ago and beyond that we didn't do a great job believing in ourselves, and then you hear from large international players like Hapag-Lloyd, like DP World, like Americold, like CPKC, that are pushing us to dream beyond what maybe we're comfortable with as New Brunswickers sometimes. How do we bottle up the energy that you've heard, that I've heard, from these people that can operate wherever they want in the world? They are not limited. They have chosen here, not because they were born here, because they want to be here. They see the value. They want to grow the business. They've put their good earned private sector dollars into this port, into New Brunswick. How do we bottle up their energy and get New Brunswickers to believe in ourselves a little bit better?
That's a great question. And I mean, I think you've got that energy bottled up. You made a joke about needing a jolt of caffeine, and I don't think anybody in this room listening to you would need that caffeine, because you energize us with the vision that you have for the port. But I think there's two things I want to say here. New Brunswick has always been a humble place, right? We don't spend a lot of time. Jerry Pond used to gripe about this. We're not great marketers or salespeople of ourselves. We're humble. We build great things and we get on with it. But the world and these partners are telling us how special what we have here is, and we have to believe them. And then we have to continue to do what we've always done: deliver great quality results in a collaborative way, where we are the easiest people to work with, the best people to work with, and can consistently provide that. And then we use maybe that maritime hospitality and charm to build the networks that we need to. Ottawa, I think, cannot wait to come and support the transformation of Sims Corner so that we can move more goods more quickly in a less disruptive way and get them out to places further afield. I think we do it incrementally. You're helping us think bigger. CPKC and Hapag-Lloyd and the team at DP World are helping us think bigger and realize that what we have here is exceptionally special and rare, and we have to continue not to use that as our superpower. We don't have to change to be like the other bigger ports because they have problems that we don't want. And maybe I'll use this opportunity to just put a little bit of salt and caution into it, because we have something great here, and it has been growing and on a trajectory. And I don't want people to take for granted that is the path, that it is guaranteed, even though Craig just guaranteed it, that it's guaranteed to get bigger and bigger from here on. It will do that if we continue to do the work, because people are at our heels. The competition is chomping at the bit. Everyone sees that there is a moment here where competition for dollars from Ottawa, competition for traffic from customers is out there. And so it is not a time for us to say, look, we're great, look, we're growing. It's a time for us to get even better and to leverage the fact that we have phenomenal labor relations and a collaborative municipality and support from the province and the federal government. And we've got to use that and build on it every day. It's not the time to take for granted that we got here and it's going to continue, because we've got to stay hungry. We've got to stay after it and constantly be improving. Because the opportunities for businesses in New Brunswick, I think this is, maybe I'll switch back to the first message now. The energy I get is that when I realize once businesses in New Brunswick understand what this means for them, what they can bring in, what they can send out, leveraging this infrastructure that maybe hadn't been on their radar, right? There's a reason why 92% of our exports go to the US. It's easy and it's next door, and it seems like it would be hard to send our world-class products, whether they be seafood or wood products or housing or beyond, to Europe or to Africa. But it isn't, because we have phenomenal partners who are invested in this port, like Hapag-Lloyd and others, like Americold, who are going to take what we make here and get it to customers around the world, who are going to take those critical inputs and bring them here and help us add value to them and send them beyond. So the opportunity for businesses in New Brunswick to grow, to transform their products, to expand their client base, to leverage this infrastructure, to do more business from New Brunswick, is going to take the kind of growth and good paying jobs that we've seen at the port and through the port partners and expand that out to businesses in New Brunswick who are going to be able to grow their own employment base and their own sales by leveraging this critical trade infrastructure. So I get energy when I think about how that next company that's just up Carleton County that is making the most amazing plastics. So they do yogurt containers, and they're sending those around North America. But do they realize that just a short trip down the road, they could access all of Africa through the investments and the leadership and the collaborative team that has been built at Port of St. John. So the opportunity for New Brunswick businesses that you are offering is there. The opportunity to be connected to the world from our strategic and special place on the Bay of Fundy is there. We have to never take it for granted, stay after it, and continue to do so the way we have gotten here, and that is by being collaborative and supportive, working as a team, bringing all of the pieces together. I'm so grateful to our partners who have demonstrated that kind of willingness. DP World has brought in, Hapag-Lloyd for us and Americold for us, and some of these assets that are going to see the Port of St. John become Canada's most successful port, the world's best port to emulate in the future. But we're going to do that by staying vigilant, staying energized and after it, and continuing to build that collaborative team around making sure that as New Brunswick has what the world wants, we are getting it to them with the partnership with the port.
I can't think of a better way to end it on that note.